And once again, for the folks that are just joining us here in the Philippine Coral Reef, in just about 4 minutes, we're going to have our morning dive program. Where for 15 minutes, we're going to be learning all about the coral reefs. We're going to be having a conversation with our diver here. And towards the end, we'll be able to ask our scuba diver any questions. And at the very end, my favorite part, we're going to be feeding the fish, which is so cool. But otherwise, that's starting in about 4 more minutes. There's plenty of seats right over here in the stands. If you see any seats over here in the front, you're more than welcome to. And of course, you can sit on the floor. Do whatever makes you comfortable.
Goose, how long have you been at the academy?
Say again?
How long have you been at the academy?
Oh, I've been at the academy for about 10 years.
Nice.
Yeah, but I've worn many different hats and been in many different departments. But now I'm here. It's a lot of fun.
Very cool. 10 years.
I wasn't much of a fish person. I was more about space. I was in the planetarium, did that for about 6 years. It was good stuff. And it looks like more people are coming on in. So, folks that are just joining us, feel free to grab a seat on the floor. If you see any space up on the bleachers, you're more than welcome to grab a seat. We're going to get started in just about a minute or so. We're going to start at 11:30, and we're going to be having a whole conversation with our diver here. We'll be able to ask some questions towards the end, and we'll also be feeding fish, which is the best part. And also, folks, just a quick reminder that you're more than welcome to take pictures and videos. All we ask is please no flash photography. And we are in a very interesting room that has this really big curved wall. So noise tends to bounce around a lot easier. So when the program begins, we want to keep our voices down to a whisper so that everyone can hear what our diver is saying, because it's a little bit hard. They are underwater, but they have lots of good stuff to share with us. Oh, it's almost time. I'm excited. I hope y'all are excited to be here too. And you know what? Let's get started. 20 seconds, that's okay. Welcome, welcome everybody to the Philippine Coral Reef here at the California Academy of Sciences, which is on the unceded homeland of the Romai Teshaloni, the original inhabitants of the San Francisco Peninsula. Really quickly, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Goose. I'm going to be your presenter for the next 15 minutes. And again, we're going to be having a whole conversation here with our diver. We're going to be learning all about the coral reef ecosystem, which we have a great display here. And towards the end, we'll be able to ask our diver any questions. So if you got any, keep them in your back pocket. And at the very end, we're going to be feeding the fish, which is so much fun. But otherwise, can everyone give a big round of applause and welcome to Diver Joe.
Hello, everybody.
All right, Diver Joe, I have so many questions for you. And the first one is, how's the water today? How are you doing?
Oh, it's super nice. It's, I think they said it was 78 today. So compared to the bay, which is maybe 55, it's way warmer. It feels like a warm tub.
Wow, that's incredible. Honestly, 78-degree water sounds way better. It's kind of chilly outside. Also, I noticed you got a funny fish kind of hanging around your head.
Yeah, he likes me. I think he really likes the bubbles. He comes and hangs out every time.
Oh yeah, those types of fish. I think they're surgeon fish. They like to play in the bubbles.
Yeah.
So they'll be hanging around during the whole program. But I kind of want to ask the audience, how many people here is a little bit jealous of our diver who wishes to be in that water right now?
It's pretty
Oh,
nice.
yeah, me too. That looks fantastic. But I also want to ask everybody, who here has gone scuba diving or snorkeling before? Show of hands. Whoa, that's a lot of people. Wow, we got a lot of scuba diver folks. Now, personally for me, I've never gone under the waves. I like to stay on land, but my favorite thing about this exhibit is that we're able to see what's happening under the waves without having to get in the water, except for our scuba diver who's in it right now. And the underwater ecosystem is fantastic. And what's really amazing is that we send a lot of researchers and divers around the world to learn more about what's happening under the waves. Diver Joe, where's some different places in the world that we send researchers to?
Well, one that's pretty specific, if you saw the name of this tank when you came in, this is called the Philippine Coral Reef Tank. So this is modeled after a real coral reef outside the Philippines. So our divers spend a lot of time there. They travel all across the Pacific Ocean to get to the real Philippine coral reefs so they can see coral reefs that look just like the one you see behind me.
Ooh, okay, so we sent a lot of folks to the Philippine coral reefs. In fact, if you look up on the screen, you can see that triangle. That's called the Coral Triangle, where you can find a lot of coral reefs, typically located near the equator of the planet. But I want to know, why are coral reefs so important? Why should I care about coral reefs?
Well, our scientists like to study a lot of different types of life. They like to see all types of fish, animals, plants. And one thing that coral reefs have that not a lot of other places in the ocean have is high biodiversity. And biodiversity means lots of different types of life. And so it's a great place for scientists to go because they can study every single thing all in one place. And coral reefs specifically are very important to the whole ecosystem of the ocean. So many different parts play into the coral reef and the life in the coral reef.
Yeah, there is a lot of biodiversity in this Philippine coral reef. In fact, it kind of reminds me of like a little city. In fact, I heard that about 25% of all marine life in the ocean rely on coral reefs as a place for shelter, safety, food. So they're very important, but not only for marine life, also us humans on land rely heavily on coral reefs, from protection against storms as a storm buffer. And not only that, a lot of folks rely on reefs to find food, and also for economic dependency, for like tourism, to bring in folks so that they can hang out and enjoy the coral reefs as well. But I also heard that only less than 1% of the entire ocean has coral reefs, so it's a really small portion, but a lot of life depend on coral reefs. But, you know, we're talking a lot. In fact, I want to show y'all really quickly what the Philippine Coral Reefs looks like. Up on the screen, you can kind of compare what we have here and the actual Philippine Coral Reef. That's real footage from over there. It looks pretty identical. And as Diver Joe mentioned, this is a replica of a real place in the Philippines called Devil's Point. Such a cool place if you ever get a chance to go. Lots and lots of life there. But, you know, I kind of want to play a quick guessing game with the audience. I want to see if y'all can guess how many different types of species of fish we have in our habitat. If you'd like to guess, go ahead, shout it out. Let's see if you can get it. I hear 70. How many species of fish do we have in here? 20? 120? 30? 8? 100? All of them. I like that answer.
Every single one.
All right. These are some great guesses. That's a great question. Our guess. All right. Let's establish our range. It could be anywhere from 8 to 700. Diver Joe, how many species of fish do we have in here?
Whoever guessed 70 was, I think, the closest. I think we have about 80.
Yeah, we have about 80 different species of fish in here, but how does that compare to the amount of fish you can find in the Philippines?
Oh, yeah. So this is just a very small representative amount of the fish that are in the real coral reefs. I think the current number, it's always changing because scientists are always finding new species of fish, but right now it's like 3,000 species and counting.
Whoa! So you can find 3,000 species in the Philippines, but we've only got 80. So we got a tiny little sliver compared to what you can find out there. And that number keeps going up because as we send researchers, they're finding new species of fish all the time. So it just keeps going up. But we talk a lot about fish, and I know fish are really important for the coral reef ecosystem, but I want to learn more about corals. For example, what is coral? I don't even know what it is. Is it a plant? Is it an animal? Is it a rock? What is it?
Yeah, so it sure looks like a plant for most of them, and some of them do look like rocks too. But what actually coral is an animal, even though it doesn't look like one. The structures behind me, that's actually a lot of different individual animals called coral polyps, and they're really, really tiny. But they all work together to build these structures to live in. And there could be thousands and tens of thousands of coral polyps in each one of these.
Whoa, that's so cool. I didn't know coral was an animal. Up on the screen, I got some photos of corals up close. And what's really amazing is that these animals are called coral polyps. They're kind of like tiny sea anemones if you shrunk it down to the size of your pinky nail. And they have tentacles that reach out and try to grab food as it's floating by. In fact, I've got a cool little video clip showing you what it looks like when these coral polyps are trying to grab some food. Check it out. So you'll see them starting to close, trying to grab some food floating by. But if you notice in the Philippines, the water's really clear, which means there's not a lot of food floating by. So that only makes up a small percentage of their food. Diver Joe, how else do corals get their main food source?
Yeah, so there's another type of algae which is called zooxanthellae. And these algae perform a lot like plants. So plants get their food from the sun. And as you said, the water's really clear in the Philippines, which means it's not great for food floating around in the water, but what it really is good for is sunlight. And so these zooxanthellae, they love making food from the sunlight. But what they need is a place to live. And so these algae and the coral polyps, they have what's called a symbiotic relationship, which means they work together. So the coral give the zooxanthellae a place to live, it gives them a home, and in return, those algae, the zooxanthellae, they give the coral a lot of the extra food they make from the sunlight.
Whoa, you're telling me that corals have roommates where algae moves in and is like, hey, I'm looking for housing, and the coral's like, yeah, you can live here, but can you give me something in exchange? And then the algae's like, yeah, I make a lot of food. Here's about 80 to 90% of all the food. And they're like, wow, this is amazing. This is great. In fact, if you look up on the screen, you can see those tiny little dots. That is the algae zooxanthellae. Let's zoom in and get a closer look at it. Ah, there it is. In fact, can everybody say the word zooxanthellae with me? Zooxanthellae. Oh, I love saying that word. It's so much fun. But we also really need to be careful and take care of the habitat in here. You'll notice some artificial lights. They're kind of mimicking the lights in the Philippines. But we also need to keep careful track of the pH level and the temperature. Diver Joe, what happens when the temperature starts to change?
Yeah, so when the temperature of water starts to change, so does the pH. They're proportional to each other. So temperature goes up, the water gets more acidic. And when the water gets more acidic, the coral don't like that. And they respond to the higher acidity level of the water by pushing out these algae. So they create a chemical that the algae really don't like. It's really, really gross to the algae. They hate it. And so the algae leave the coral. And one thing about these algae the coral, is that they're all very colorful, right? Now, coral by themselves actually don't have any color. They're bone white. The algae, the zooxanthellae that we just learned about, that's what actually gives them their color. And so when the water gets more acidic, the zooxanthellae leave, the coral turn bleach white.
Whoa, I had no idea that the algae is responsible for the coral's color. And if the water starts to get warm, that stresses out the algae, which creates a toxic chemical, which hurts the coral. And the coral's like, ow, you're hurting me. So then the coral kicks out that algae. It loses its color. And this is something called coral bleaching. Has anybody ever heard of coral bleaching before? Show of hands. Oh, actually, that's more people than usual. A lot of people don't know about it because it's happening under the water. But it kind of goes back to what we humans are doing here on land. Now, we humans, we like to drive around, we like to go many different places, and when we do that, we're burning a lot of coal, gas, fuel, which releases a large amount of CO2 that goes up into the atmosphere, which acts like a heating blanket and warms up the atmosphere and then eventually warms up the ocean, which then stresses out the algae and then causes coral bleaching. But the good news is, now that we know what's causing the problem, we can find solutions to help fix or alleviate it. And here at the California Academy of Sciences, we're doing some really cool stuff called Hopes for Reefs. Diver Joe, can you tell us more about Hopes for Reefs?
Yeah, sure. So there's some coral in the wild that, despite the warming temperature of the water, they've actually developed a resistance to the acidity and the coral bleaching. And so what our scientists are trying to do are go out into the Philippine coral reef or many other coral reefs and find those coral that are doing really well despite the warming temperatures. And what we want to do is make more of them. And so we'll take a little sample of those and we'll bring them all the way back here where we'll what's called propagate them and make more of them, allow them to grow. Yeah, we bring them back on these little tetrapods that Goose is holding right there. And so we grow a lot more, we make a big mass of them, and we bring them back to the environment we found them, and we let them thrive.
Ooh, that sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie, to be honest. So y'all collect coral samples, bring them back, select heat-resilient corals, and once they grow into large enough polyps, stick them on these tetrahedrals, and then go out and plant them out in the ocean where they can grow into heat-resilient corals. But, you know, I also want to help out coral reefs, but I don't want to go in the water. Is there anything that I can do here on land to help out corals?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you just said, all the carbon that we're putting into the environment from burning oil, coal, whatever, is having an effect by warming the oceans. And so the way we can minimize that is by minimizing the amount of carbon that we put into the atmosphere. And there's plenty of ways to do that. The ways that I like the most personally are driving less. So I ride my bike or take the bus as much as I can, and I eat less meat. I'm a vegetarian, so I think meat is a high carbon product, and the less you eat of that, the better your carbon footprint will be.
Ooh, those are all some great ways that we can reduce our CO2 emissions. One of my favorite ways is by riding my bike. Who here likes to ride a bike? Show of hands. Oh, it's one of the coolest feelings in the world, and I love going anywhere, riding my bike, if it's going to the grocery store or hanging out with friends. And also another great way is using public transportation. You don't have to get stuck in traffic. Pop in a audio book, and you are coasting to your destination. It's one of my favorite ways to cut down on CO2 emissions. But honestly, y'all being here and learning about coral bleaching is a huge help. A lot of people don't know about it. And if we share what's happening to corals to friends and family, that is also another great way to help out as well. But also looking at the time, it's time for us to take some questions from the audience. So let's switch gears. Folks, if you want to ask Diver Joe any question, just raise your hand and I'll come over. What's your question? Do you have a question? Yeah, what's your question? Oh, okay, yeah. All right. Our friend in the front would like to know more examples of how we can help out coral reefs here on land.
Oh, well, I think the best things we can do are come to the Academy of Science because we're doing our Hope for Roots program. But aside from that, there's just all the different ways, like we were just talking about reducing your carbon footprint. There's a whole myriad of ways. There's hundreds of ways you can do that. And I think for some of the youths in here, the kids, not much I think they can do personally, but a lot of the adults can make different decisions about what they do and how they affect their livelihood.
So those are a few different examples. Some of the ways that I like to help out is trying to grab all my friends and organize them so that we can do beach cleanups to reduce the amount of trash that's going into the ocean, which is a big help because a lot of it starts on land and then ends up in the ocean.
That's a good one.
One of my favorite ways. You have a question? What makes waves? Oh, inside? Ooh, that's a good question. Let's see if we find out. All right, I got a two-part question for you. One, how are we making waves inside, and how come you're not floating away from all the waves?
So we have what's called a wave machine, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It just makes waves because the fish and the coral that live in here, they like to live in a real ocean environment. So we try to mimic that as best we can by making the waves. Now, when I'm in here, they turn it off because if it was going, I'd be floating all over the place. I'm not floating away right now because I've got these big weights on my waist here, and those are keeping me sunk down to this level.
So we have a wave machine that makes waves inside the habitat. I also heard there's like different jets of water, so sometimes you might find fish like swimming. You can kind of see the different types of creatures inside kind of swaying back and forth with that current. Super cool. And it looks like we have time for maybe 2 more questions. Ooh, right over there, yeah. All right. Our friends in the back would like to know who's your friend and what are they doing? And also, who is this Pinocchio fish? Oh, I think your audio went out. Let's see.
Uh-oh.
There we go. I hear you.
Okay. So the first question was, that's Jackie over here, and she's just cleaning this glass right now. So this glass gets a lot of scratches in it, and the algae that live in this water, they like to grow on it. And if we just let it keep growing, it would just cover this whole window, and you wouldn't be able to see anything. So we have to come in and clean it every once in a while. The second question, that Pinocchio fish, right? That's called a unicorn fish. That's one of my favorite fish. Let's see if you can see them. There's quite a few of them in here, but oh yeah, here's one right here. Yeah, they're named very aptly. I mean, they're unicorn fish. They have a big unicorn horn on the front. And the fun fact about those fish is we actually don't know why they have the horn on their foreheads. We haven't figured that out yet.
All right. So we have our friend Jackie over here, and they are scrubbing all the algae off the glass because we got to stay with maintenance. And also, that Pinocchio fish is the unicorn fish, and scientists don't know what the horn is for. So maybe somebody in here one day will figure out what the horn is for the unicorn fish. Who knows? And all right, it looks like we have time for one more question. All right, you'll take the final question. Ooh, let's see and find out. Our friend would like to know, how does algae give coral its color?
That's a good question. Yeah, so the algae are colorful themselves, and so when there are just enough of them, so there's those antheles that we're talking about, those algae are so small. In each of these big coral structures, there's, millions and millions of individual algae, but they're all, look at this one here. All those antheles that live in that one are green. And so since there's so many of them, the whole structure looks green.
Oh, yeah, it does come in a lot of different colors, and it's all based on the algae. Huh, pretty cool. Well, folks, it looks like it's time for us to feed the fish. We have a fish tornado over there. But in order to feed the fish, we got to check in with our biologist up on top, Simon. Oh, there's Simon. Hi, Simon. And in order to feed the fish, we got to do a countdown. We're going to say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then we're all going to say, feed those fish. Can you do that with me? All right, let's give it a try. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Feed those fish.
They were hungry.
To be honest, I forget how fast fish can swim.
Oh, yeah.
It's like lightning.
Right.
And Diver Joe, what type of food are we feeding the fish today?
It's a combination of things. So we have nori seaweed is one of them that we like to feed them, and it's the same type of seaweed you buy in the store that everyone, all humans eat too. But then we have this other kind of dry pellet-looking protein pellet food that it kind of looks like dog food, honestly. But the fish love it, and so they get all their nutrients from it. And the nori seaweed, I think, just really tastes good to them.
Ooh, that sounds pretty good. I didn't know I ate the same kind of food as fish, nori seaweed, throw in some ramen. Whew, that's dinner right there.
Tasty.
But also, I kind of noticed that it looks like all the big fish kind of got all the food. What about the little fish?
Yeah, so it does kind of look like the big fish pushed the little ones out of the way, but it's totally fine. The big fish, they are actually really messy eaters, and so these pellets that we're throwing in there, they're about, I don't know, the size of your thumb, and when the big fish get to them first, they get to the bigger chunks. They'll rip them apart, but they'll get maybe half of it, and so all the little pieces will sink down. And they ignore those smaller pieces, but the little fish love them, and so everyone gets a piece of it.
Ah, so the big fish are messy eaters and leave crumbs, and that's just enough for the little fish. Honestly, it kind of reminds me of the family dinner table. Whew, it gets rambunctious.
Hmm.
Well, folks, it looks like we're close to the end, and I want to do a quick recap of our program. And there's a lot of cool stuff about coral reefs. They are really important for all marine life around the globe and also for us humans here on land. But coral reefs are facing a huge threat right now, which is coral bleaching. And that comes back to what we humans are doing here on land. We're releasing a lot of CO2 in the atmosphere. And there's stuff that we could do to help out, like here at the Academy. We're going out, we're collecting corals and selecting heat-resilient ones and spawning them and bringing them out into the ocean to grow into heat-resilient corals. We can also do our part to help out by reducing CO2 emissions by riding our bike, using public transportation. You being here and telling your friends and family is a great help. But otherwise, can everyone give a big round of applause and a thank you to Diver Joe? Thank you so much for being here and being amazing.
Yeah, thanks everyone for coming. I hope you enjoyed it.
And folks, if you want to come up and take a photo with Diver Joe, you're more than welcome to. And also, if you want to give Diver Joe a diver high five just like this, you're more than welcome. I'll be sticking around for about 5-10 minutes. My name is Goose, but otherwise, I hope you have a great day at the museum. Bye.